This is the Summit League Podcast, an inside look at a league ascending in the world of college basketball, yet remaining one of its best-kept secrets. We'll showcase the league's men's and women's basketball stars on their journey to reach the summit and pursue the big dance. Now, here's your host of the Summit League Podcast, Matt Pocket.
All right, it is episode 1. Finally, of the Summit League Podcast. Good to be here, everybody. Matt Pocket. I have a full show on tap today with 5 guests. Rodney Billups, Denver's men's basketball coach. Emily Clemens, the standout for Western Illinois and the reigning Summit League Athlete of the Month. Niecee Nelson, Fort Wayne's women's basketball coach. Matt Mooney, the standout player from the University of South Dakota. Brittany Lange, the Omaha Mavericks women's head basketball coach. They're all joining me on the show today. But first, a little bit of housekeeping before we get into episode 1. I told you guys this is going to be a big show. Those of you who have been following along over social media over the last couple of weeks, I promised a big show, and we do have it in store for you here today. Heads up, South Dakota State's Mike Daum earning his second straight Summit Men's Basketball Player of the Week award. It is his 4th in 5 weeks after he scored 27 points with 12 rebounds against Oral Roberts, then posted a 34 points line with 8 rebounds against Denver last week. And Niecee Miller of South Dakota State is the Women's Player of the Week, 4th time this season, as she scored 18 with 7 rebounds against Denver, then scored 26 against ORU. It is her 8th 20-plus point game this season. Also, the Lou Henson Award midseason watch list has 3 Summit stars on its 40-man list. Fort Wayne's John Conchar, South Dakota State's Mike Daum, and South Dakota's Matt Mooney, who again we'll hear from here in just a little bit. They're all on the watch list for the nation's top mid-major player. All right, a full house today. A long show, a very, very good one on tap. My voice is a little bit sore right now, so hopefully that doesn't come out throughout this. Had a long weekend with a lot of games out here at the Summit League Podcast headquarters, but had a lot of good conversations with our guests today, and it's a very good episode. I was really happy with how it turned out, and I hope you all enjoy. Episode 1 of the Summit League Podcast starts next as Rodney Billups, the head coach of Denver's men's basketball program, is on here on the Summit League Podcast.
The madness returns to Sioux Falls with the 2018 Summit League Basketball Championships. See one of the nation's top college basketball tournaments March 3rd through the 6th at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. Tickets are on sale now at any Ticketmaster outlet. All session tickets starting at less than $10 per game. Support your team and find out who will punch their ticket to the big dance. Go to thesummitleague.org/tickets and claim your seats today. Brought to you by the generosity of our sponsors and the Sioux Falls Sports Authority.
Will your team reach the summit this season? The Summit League offers 19 sport championships, and you can get schedules, fan information, live stats, streaming, and more in one location at thesummitleague.org/championships. Need the latest updates? Follow each championship as it plays out on social media via Twitter @SummitChamps. And now, back to Matt Pocket on the Summit League Podcast.
That's right. It's our very first episode all time, the Summit League Podcast. Thanks for joining me, Matt Pocket. Joined now on the line by our very first guest of all time. It's the man who just celebrated a birthday the other day. It's Rodney Billups. Happy birthday to you. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. 35 is going to be a good year for me.
Good to hear. Did you do anything special for it or just get back into town and sleep a lot?
You know, we traveled early from Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
And I got in and got a chance to meet with our guys about our weekend, and I went home and watched some football, so it was great.
Yeah, it was a big weekend for the team as well. You went on the road to South Dakota State and North Dakota State. Boy, how about that NFL finish? So you had that Steelers and Jacksonville game, and then right after that the Vikings Saints game. What a crazy finish!
It was unbelievable. I thought that game was done. I actually
Yeah.
turned the channel. I thought the game was over.
Really?
And looked at my social media feed and saw what had happened. It was crazy.
That's
it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's one of the craziest plays I've ever seen at any level of sports. And then to think, the playoffs are on the line. You're going to the championship game after that, and especially for Minnesota, how cool would that be for them to play in the Super Bowl in their own town?
Yeah, that's awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I feel bad for that Saints locker room
Yep.
after a game like that. They had the game won. So I can only feel empathy for that.
Absolutely. Over the weekend, Denver basketball, the Pioneers losing to South Dakota State, but you guys did beat North Dakota State 67-61 in Fargo for the first time ever a couple of days before. Did you feel, Rodney, that was a milestone moment for you guys?
I think so for our team, for our seniors who have played in that building 4 years, for them to get a win, for us to play really well and shoot the ball really well and actually defend how we plan to. It was a huge win for our program. It's one thing when you win a game like that and you let that snowball kind of develop and you create some momentum and you get another win on the road, but not being able to compete like we did against North Dakota State, against South Dakota State, was a little humbling. So we're still trying to figure things out, but it was a great win at North Dakota State.
Denver Pioneers men's basketball head coach Rodney Billups here on the Summit League podcast. Rodney, you're originally from the Denver area. What does it mean to you to have spent so much of your career basically right there at home?
Everything, really. We've got a huge family and very close-knit family, so being able to play high school here, college here, and now coach here in Denver and be able to walk around with Denver still on my chest is extremely important to myself and my family. So it's a lot of the pride that comes from our program, just with their leader in me, and I'm very prideful of that.
Rodney, a lot of coaches take their first head coaching job as a build gig. They're happy for the job. Ultimately, they're looking somewhere else down the line. But for you, this seems more like it's the destination type of job. Is that a good way to put it? And what do you want to ultimately accomplish during your Denver tenure?
I've never really thought past, being an assistant coach and working my way up. So, going from assistant to associate head coach to head coach. So I never really put things in a huge perspective until this job opportunity opened up. And once Peg, my boss, our AD, Peg Bradley Doppis, called me and asked if I was interested, this job became like the dream job as an assistant at Colorado. And since I've gotten here, of course, there's better jobs out there in the country. Of course, there's bigger programs, but this job has been a bit of everything that I wanted from my first head coaching job. So it is a destination job for me. My parents are 15 minutes down the road. My brother's 5 minutes down the road. Every friend that I grew up with still comes to our games. So it's fun right now trying to build this program up. But who knows what may happen with my career? I may be here 20 years or 5, depending on our success. So.
You mentioned earlier, too, that you played for Denver as a student athlete. Let's hop into the way, way back machine for a minute, and then we'll work our way back to the present day gradually. What was it like playing for Denver from 2002 to 2005, and what led you to picking Denver?
Well, my freshman year, I went to a junior college in California, LA Valley College in North Hollywood. And that experience, I was extremely homesick. I was ready to come back. I wanted to play for Coach Patton up in Boulder at the University of Colorado. And my experience in junior college was one of, I want to go home and I want to represent my city and my state if I can. And I came home for spring break. I played with the guys here at DU and Coach Lange, who was the assistant coach at the time. He liked what I did that day and asked me to come back and kind of formed the perfect marriage from there. And being able to play here for 3 years, being able to get my degree here in 3 years means the world to me. And being able to relate to our student athletes now, to be able to say that, look, I sat in those classes. I went through the same a possible process that you're going through, it's really important to me, and being able to do that is impactful to our student athletes. So, it's my experience as a student athlete was one of competition. It was one of fun. It was one of developing a brotherhood of friends that I still talk to this day, and now being able to give all that back it's fun.
Can you describe what it was like to wear your city's name on your jersey as a college basketball player?
Not very many people are able to do that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was home. It was a level of ownership. It was a reason to play hard every single time I put my practice jersey on or my game jersey on. It was so much bigger than myself, and it gave me a reason to compete. And a lot of guys can't say that. I'm not sure everyone in our locker room, even the Denver guys that we have on our team now, can say that and have that pride that I had. But it was fun. It was who I am and who I was at the time.
Rodney Billups, the head coach of Denver's men's basketball team here on the Summit League podcast. Rodney, playing professionally overseas, you played in Latvia for a little while and Finland too. First, what do you remember about being a young player turning professional after college?
My first year in Latvia, it was a bit of a culture shock. Going from, every meal being in the dorms or, your family coming to every game and every event to now I'm, thousands and thousands of miles away. I'm 9 hours away, time difference-wise. I'm alone. It's cold. It's dark. It's just me and this language barrier. It was some culture shock there. But that 2 hours, that 3 hours a day on the court was like solitude. The game has taken me, from being a boy to now a man. The game has taken me from Denver to, all around this world. So there's an appreciation for that. But my experience, my first year in Latvia was hard. It took me some time to figure out, as a man, what I can handle and what I couldn't handle. And it helped me grow up. And it was, I respected that facet of that experience.
Did you eventually kind of find stuff to do out there outside of basketball, or was it basically just come here, put in your shift every day, and live the life of a pro?
Well, when I first got there, I had a translator. So, I kind of did what he did. And it was probably 3 months into my experience where I found out that there was younger people that were learning the English language. And I was 22 at the time, 22, 23, and the young people, 18, 19, 20, they were hanging out downtown in Old Riga, and they were speaking English. And, it got to a point where I would hang out at the McDonald's or hang out at TGI Fridays, which were the only two Americanized restaurants there, and meet people and start to find out that there's a movie theater that has English subtitles, or there's, gyms that, people from other countries that speak English would go to. So I got it figured out later on down the line, but I was there 10 months and didn't get it figured out until, 5 or 6 months into it. So it took some time, and I tell that story, and I give my experiences to our student athletes and even young kids in the Denver community who aspire to be professional basketball players. I give that story to them just to help them understand, look, it's bigger than just playing at your high school level. It's bigger than playing, in these club teams. You got to aspire to be great and do great things, and being over there was a great experience for me.
Rodney Billups, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers men's basketball team. You moved on to Finland after that, and I know one or two guys who played in Finland, and they said the people there were great, but it was weird because, for one, the sun wasn't out all that long during the winter, and it made a really strange adjustment. And then, finding different ways to just kind of fit into the community, being a non-English speaker, being an English speaker in a non-English speaking community. What was the Finnish experience like for you?
Finland was a little better as far as the language barrier. Finland at the time, I was in a small town called Kouvola, which was about an hour and 15 minutes from Helsinki. So we got to go there quite a bit. But the city of Kouvola, like you said, it was dark, 22 hours a day.
Yeah.
Sun came out from 10 to 12. and it was dark and it was rainy and snowy during the wintertime. But Finland was a lot like playing in college. There was no limit on American players or foreign players. So, we had 4 guys from America on our team. We played against guys. Most teams had 6 or 7. So the competition in Finland was a lot better, and there was more guys to relate to. And it was my second year, so I kind of knew the process of getting the internet, getting unlimited amount of movies to bring back, and it was an easier experience than my first year. But Finland is the basketball at the time was really good, and that made a huge difference in being able to adapt to the no sunshine.
After your playing career finished up, how did you end up back at Denver?
By luck, the grace of God, actually. I came home. I started 2 businesses, 2 family businesses. I worked there for 2 years, or a year and a half. I started coaching some club stuff. I started Billups Elite our Billups Elite Club program, and at the time, Biz Delic was still at the University of Colorado, and he reached out to me, asked if I was interested in coming up and having a conversation about being a director of basketball ops at CU. This was in March, and by the time that I did my interview and got hired, he had shipped off to Wake Forest. So through that process of them hiring Tad Boyle, who's now the head coach there at CU, he and I we would talk and we would meet, and he hired me, and I worked under Tad for 6 years until I was fortunate enough to get a call from DU and asked if I wanted to interview, and it was one of one. She interviewed one person. I accepted the job, and now we're here.
On this team right now, you've got a lot of Colorado-born players. Is that important to you, building the team through these local connections in turn, similar to your experience?
Absolutely. And, Coach Scott did a good job with recruiting Denver. I think he always had a Denver kid on his team. He was here 9 years, so I respect him for that. But, when I was at CU, when I was at Colorado, we recruited the best Colorado kids, and that's what I'm interested in, getting the best kids that'll fit our culture and that are willing to do whatever it takes to win, even sacrificing their own, offensive abilities to make the best possible play for our team to win. I'm interested in recruiting those type of guys. And there's certainly some here in the city, but if I have to go, all the way to New York City to get that done, I will, but I'm definitely going to protect home.
You're still one of the youngest coaches in the country. Do you get out there and play around in practice to show the guys a couple of things still? I mean, you look like you could still run the offense for 25, 30 minutes a night, but do you think that then helps you connect with some of the players, too, being a little bit closer to their age?
Absolutely. I play every now and again with our guys just to give them a different perspective, just to show them what I see and to help them, with their basketball knowledge. But I tried not to. I want them to see me as Coach Billups instead of the player, Rodney. So I tried not to play, even though I joke with our assistant coaches. Man, I wish we had Rodney Billups on our roster right now. We'd be in some better shape with our team. But
you're trying to find an extra year of eligibility, right?
Exactly.
Now,
exactly.
On this year's team, Joey Rozga's a really good player for you guys. He can really score the basketball. Good three-point shooter. He's tremendous at the free throw line, and he's a good rebounder for the position. What's his work ethic like in practice, and do you see a little bit of yourself in the way he plays?
He's the hardest working player that I've coached. He's limited in his athleticism. He's limited in his ability to guard the ball, but he works extremely hard. And do I see some of myself in him? No, he's totally different than I was. He's more of a scorer. He's got a scoring mentality. I can score. I could score when necessary, but I wasn't thinking like Joe. No, Joe shoots the ball extremely well for us, and that's kind of his role. But I'm trying to give him some of the knowledge and some of the point guard thoughts that I had and that I still have to make him a better player. And when he does become a point guard, he'll make some money playing basketball, I think, in his next lifetime.
Not necessarily a basketball question. Rodney Billups, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers men's basketball team here on the Summit League podcast. Denver is currently the reigning and defending champion of college hockey right now. As a basketball program, as other programs inside that department, do you feed off that as a team knowing that you've got a national title winner in this school right now?
We don't necessarily feed off of it. We're all competitive, so that men's locker room downstairs is usually pretty competitive in the conversations that we have, and you know, we want to make our hockey program and our lacrosse program proud as they make us, you know, throughout the season. So we try to bounce ideas off of each other and try to help each other in recruiting. But you know, the energy that they gave our university, not just our athletic program, of course we feed off the energy, but we also we kind of take it personal and you know, what you could do, I could do better with that kind of attitude. So it's fun and competitive.
Couple of games this weekend for the Pioneers, Omaha and Oral Roberts. Rodney, what do you think about those games, and how do you assess your team leading into the weekend?
Well, Omaha is certainly getting better every single time they play. You know, the style of play that they demand their opponents to play is kind of a kryptonite for us. They pressure the ball and they get after guys, and they can score individual through their individual players. So that poses a problem for us, and we've got to take on that challenge to be able to guard the ball and play without turning it over. But if we do that, I think the game will be close, and we'll give ourselves a chance to win at the end. And then, you know, 2 days later we go down to Tulsa and play Oral Roberts, which they play zone, a very competitive zone, and a zone that gives them a chance to win every single game, especially how they started in our league play. So two tough games, two really good coaches. This is our third and fourth game on the road, so in a row on the road. So we've got to lock in and come with a different type of focus and not relax and compete for 40 minutes in both games.
Rodney Billups, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers men's basketball team. You can follow Rodney on Twitter at @Coach_Billups. You can follow Denver as well at DU_MHoops for more information about the Denver Pioneers. Rodney, wanted to thank you for stopping by today. Really appreciate the time.
No problem. Thanks for the birthday wishes. I wish you and everyone in the Summit League a great 2018.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. You too.
All right, thanks.
We'll catch up with you soon. We will take a break, and when we come back, we will talk with Emily Clemens of the Western Illinois Leathernecks right here on the Summit League podcast.
In its fourth decade, the Summit League continues its ascent through excellence in the classroom and success in the field of play. In cities big and small, at public and private universities, students across league institutions reach for the summit. From academic All-Americans to NCAA champions and nationally ranked teams, Summit League student-athletes achieve the pinnacle of success. The Summit League, where tomorrow's leaders reach the summit today.
Get the latest news on all 19 Summit League sports at thesummitleague.org. Watch championships, access the League's ESPN3 events, view up-to-date standings, statistics, and more, all at the home for Summit League athletics. Follow the League's social media pages on Twitter at The Summit League and on Facebook and Instagram at /The Summit League. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's the first ever edition of the Summit League podcast. I'm Matt Pocket, joined on the phone line now by Emily Clemens, the reigning Summit League Athlete of the Month, along with South Dakota State's Mike Daum. Emily, how are you today, and what's that award mean to you?
Good, Matt. I think it means a lot. It's really a true reflection of our team play and the unselfishness. I think it's pretty evident when anyone on our team gets an award. We see those as team awards, not individual. So that's what's really fun about this group.
And then as a team, a couple of weeks ago, you go on the road and you play top 25 Stanford and knock them off in their own building. What was that game like, and what's it been like thinking about that game in the last few weeks?
It was fun. It was a fun trip, and as a whole, we got to explore San Francisco a little bit, see the Golden Gate Bridge, things like that. And then we knew we had a big opportunity in front of us, and you look for those opportunities, just something to put your school on the radar, get our team on the radar. Stanford's a great team, and they played well. They had a couple girls out, but still, they're full of All-Americans. So it was a good opportunity for us, and we went in there with nothing to lose and just played hard and came out with the win.
You seem like a fun team to watch, and part of that is the style that you play. But again, I think that's something that lets you survive some of those runs against you, because Stanford made a run on you guys in the second quarter, and then you came back in the second half and started to really grind them out. And I think that team chemistry really helped you survive that.
Yeah, the fun thing about our team is we have so many weapons out on the floor that, it could be anybody's day, anybody's night. And when a couple of us aren't shooting well, usually we have a couple other girls who can pick up the slack of that. And so that's what makes our team really fun, and we're just really well-rounded.
Emily Clemens, Western Illinois Leatherneck star. You play a really unique defense, a zone with a ton of switching, rotations, very active defensively. How would you describe the defense that you play as a team?
Let's see. I would say scrappy, just getting in some passing lanes and trying to create indecisiveness for the opposing team. We made some adjustments with our rotations and just try to, disrupt. I would say it's a disrupting defense, or that's at least what we try to make it be. And it's just kind of flying all over and just being aggressive and making plays, playing with instinct.
It doesn't really have a description, does it? I mean, it's not really a 2-3. It's not a 3-2. It's not man-to-man. I mean, if you had to slot it as a traditional, I guess, defense, what's the closest cousin to it?
I've seen a couple things, just opposing teams, what they call it. I've seen it be called a 1-3-1, which I could see that. It's just hard because with the rotations, we just have people floating around and making rotations instinctively. So I guess you could maybe call it something similar to a 1-3-1, but it really doesn't represent that totally either.
You've had a lot of success since you moved to that system. Where did the idea come from, and what was it like learning to play it?
I don't really know where it came from the coaching standpoint, but they just introduced it to us one day at practice. And anytime you learn a new defense, new offense, those things take time and take adjusting to. I think we had to it took some time for us to get adjusted to and kind of buy into the idea. Not necessarily that we didn't agree with it. It was just so different for us. And so I'm not really sure where Gravina got that from, but it's been successful for the most part.
Emily Clemens, Western Illinois, you're the best in the league in steals per game, and you're one of the best in the country. When you get a steal, do you prefer ambushing passing lanes, or do you prefer, ideally, to rob the ball handler?
I think a lot of times it comes from being in the back of that person. If they're squared up to the basket and I'm kind of floating around them, I think it's just hard. You never know who's around you, and I think just playing passing lanes and being decisive when I make those moves and try to get the steal. And I get a lot of steals at the top of that just because just rotating the ball around the perimeter. We do a really good job at jumping those passing lanes, and that's just something that I've tried to do.
Turning the other way, you're fourth in the country in assists per game, too. Really, you're a statistical beast, but is there any aspect of your game that you would like to improve on a little more even?
Yeah, I think rebounding, just chasing some of those long rebounds. Obviously, I don't have the height on my side, but, you can get some of those hustle rebounds, especially the long. If it's coming off a three, I can be that person to chase it down. And just being more confident with my shooting. I've kind of struggled with three-point shooting confidence, but I think I'm getting better and just realizing the amount of time I have left playing. I think it's playing with that aspect of confidence.
Emily Clemens, Western Illinois. Western was your only Division I offer out of high school. Do you think about that often, especially now later in your career, and when you hear about all these top 10 statistical categories that you're in? How do you think about your journey in basketball, looking back on it from back when you were being recruited by Western?
Yeah, I don't think about it too much. I played softball, and in Iowa, softball is played in the summer, so it kind of took away that AAU aspect for me. I had to make a decision, and at the end of the day, I still wanted to play softball in high school. That was probably my second favorite sport. So I know I missed out on some exposure opportunities, but I never really cared about it too much. I was just fortunate that, Gravina recruited me here and gave me the opportunity that he did.
Now, Emily, you've already completed your degree, and you're in grad school now, right? What's that like, and what are you studying?
Yeah, I just graduated in December with my bachelor's in marketing, and now I'm working towards my master's in sport management. And, with taking some classes in the summer for being here for basketball, and I was fortunate at my high school to take some dual enrollment classes that transferred as college credit through Muscatine Community College. So I was just I was ahead of the game in that aspect, and I was able to do that, which was lucky for me. And so I just was a little bit ahead in my graduation track. So I'm glad I get to pursue my master's in sport management, because that's definitely what I'm interested in.
I spent a year in grad school, and I remember from my experience, sleep and I we weren't friends, put it that way. We didn't run into each other a whole lot. How do you? And I wasn't a college basketball player. How do you balance everything?
I like to take early classes, get them out of the way, and then work on my homework right away after class. And then we have practice and dinner, and I like to cook, so I usually cook dinner for an hour or so. But I think I don't know. I guess I'm disciplined in that aspect. I know what I need to get done, and you can say that I'm a borderline perfectionist, so I like to do it and do it well.
What kind of stuff do you like to cook? I mean, I make nothing. I make like pasta. That's it.
I like pasta.
Okay.
I have a couple cookbooks that I take recipes out of, and I'm always on Pinterest just looking up new things.
So is there a career in being a chef on tap for you after basketball?
Definitely not.
After your playing days wrap, do you want to continue playing basketball, or do you imagine getting into coaching if you're not going to be a chef?
I've thought about playing. It's not really on my radar too much right now. I'm just trying to focus on season, but I definitely have dreams to be a college coach, and I think I credit my coaches right now for that. Just a relationship I've been able to develop with them has just shown me the impact that you can have on young players as a coach. And so that's probably my first goal right now. I guess if I finish and I really feel like I want to continue to pursue basketball, then I'd look into it. But right now I'm not really focusing on that.
You're currently involved in the WBCA, so you want to be a coach program. What's that program all about? How'd you get into it, and what do you do with it?
I kind of talked to Gravina just, when I was trying to figure out whether to pursue my master's or kind of take the minimum for my bachelor's. And, he talked to me about being the graduate assistant next year for the team. And I told him, I expressed my interest in coaching, and he kind of gave me that idea of that program. And, I talked to my high school coach about it, and she was familiar with the program as well. So I just did some research and kind of saw what the program was about and the opportunities I would have. And, I applied because that's, at the end of the day, right now, that's what I want to do as coach. So I'll be able to go to the Final Four, experience the Final Four in Columbus this year, and just kind of be taught, some of the things necessary for networking and just seeing like some other coaches and hearing their perspectives as well.
Emily Clemens, Western Illinois Leathernecks star. It sounds like you're really close to J.D. Gravina, your head coach. What's that been like working with him over the last few years?
Yeah, he's a great guy as a coach and as a person, and I think that's what makes him so special. He can drive us to want to play well, but at the end of the day, we respect him, and I think that's a huge thing, especially at the Division I level. And he does care about us as people, not just as players. He wants the best for us. He's always wanting to know, what's going on in our lives, and he's just a good person that you can go to if you ever need anything. And I think a lot of that comes with just being the point guard, kind of being the floor general. You sometimes have that close-knit relationship with your coach, and he's just been really easy to work with and really easy to get along with. And I definitely, look up to him and what I want to do as a coach.
Do you see a lot of those same attributes in him that you see in yourself, and do you think that will make you a good future head coach somewhere?
Yeah, and I think I've picked up on a lot of the things that he does. Some of his approaches to the game and approaches to connecting with players, I've definitely picked up on, and our staff as a whole does that as well. I'm really close with Coach Minner and Sid and Tia. I'm close with all of them, and I think that's just what they bring as a staff. They're just friendly and supportive, and they want to have a good relationship off the court as well.
So it's a very close-knit team over there, the Western Illinois women's basketball team. It's Emily Clemens on the line here on the Summit League podcast. Let's grill you with some questions here. These are where the tough questions come in, right? Who's the funniest on the team?
Oh, the funniest.
Tough questions. I told you, we're putting you on the hot seat now.
I would say Grace Gilmore, our freshman, has captured that role. She's hilarious in all aspects. We call her Gilly. So it's kind of a joke. We call her Gilly, but she just brings a great positive attitude to our team. She hasn't played a ton so far this season, but she's the first person to jump up in the air when you hit a three, or to give you a pat on the back after you do something well, or if you have a mistake. So I think just to see her growth as a teammate, with just being a freshman, I think that just says a lot about her.
Conversely, who's the most serious?
I could maybe say myself, or
okay.
Olivia Brown. Brown. Sorry, I messed that up. But Olivia Brown, she plays, the five for us, and a lot of times she might go under the radar, but she's a competitor, and she's our rim protector, and just brings a lot to our team that people don't see necessarily on the stat sheet. But when it comes down to game time, she's very serious.
Who's got the weirdest pregame rituals? Every team's got them.
Yeah, we have a lot of nappers on our team. I would say Morgan Bloomer sleeps more than anyone I know. And I usually take a pregame nap as well. But, sometimes she'll skip out on breakfast just so she can get an extra 45 minutes to an hour nap in. So she definitely, it's crazy. I've never seen anyone sleep like she does.
There's a guy on one of the hockey teams that I cover right now that he does a handstand in the hallway an hour before the game. He'll do a handstand for, I think, 60 seconds or something like that. It's nuts. I don't get it, but to each their own, I suppose. What's the pregame music of choice on the team?
It just kind of depends. If you would ask me, I would probably prefer to play some country music, but that doesn't really get people pumped up in the locker room. So every once in a while, I'll do the music. Morgan has done the music. There's just a different assortment. We throw some rap in there, but for the most part, we get to the gym and get ready to we go out to the court and get some shots up, so I'm not always in there listening to whatever they're playing.
What's the best movie that somebody's ever put on a bus trip to an away game?
It's tough
Deep
for me to answer that
here. Yeah.
because it's tough for me to answer that because I'm usually sleeping on the bus. I struggle with getting car sick, so as soon as we take off, I'm usually laying down in the seat. But I know they've had some good ones, and Grace the other day chose Sound of Music. I'm not sure everyone was super thrilled about that, but I can't really answer that question because usually I'm not watching.
Gotcha. What's your favorite other gym to play in the Summit League?
I really like South Dakota's new gym. I think it's just the perfect size for a mid-major school, and they fill it really well. And it's just the activity, the enthusiasms, and the fans that they bring to that gym. It's just a good representation of a good following for a mid-major school, and obviously it's a brand new facility. So I think that one's really nice.
Emily Clemens, Western Illinois. What's your favorite restaurant in a Summit League location, not Western Illinois?
I like Cubby's in Brookings. It's a small town, so there's kind of like Macomb. There's not a ton of options, so usually it's an annual thing that we go to Cubby's. I get their Mexicali wrap with sweet potato fries.
So you've already got it picked out for next time.
Well, we play them Saturday, so we just got done finishing up our food orders, so I didn't have to change it from last year.
What's your favorite sport that's not basketball?
I really enjoyed softball. Yeah, I really enjoyed softball, but in terms of watching, I love football. I watched professional and college, but definitely basketball is first.
What did you think about that Minnesota Vikings play the other day?
It was crazy. We were all watching it. I was with my boyfriend and his family, and we were just going back and forth. Like his dad had said, "Oh, it's over," and we stayed and watched it till the end. But that was crazy. We were actually yelling, "Run out of bounds" at that point because I didn't know that it was open field in front of him. I thought that there was someone back there still.
Which basketball player do you most emulate in your play? Who do you compare yourself to?
I wouldn't necessarily say compare myself to, but I really like Isaiah Thomas just because he's undersized, and I think he does a lot of things well for his size. He's just super small in the NBA. And I would also say Russell Westbrook, not necessarily his attitude or mannerisms at some points, but I think just the aggression that he plays with and the fact that he's able to get so many triple-doubles at his size is just something that I admire, and I also his passing ability.
Emily Clemens, Western Illinois. On Thursday, you welcome in Fort Wayne, and then, like you said, you head out to Brookings to play South Dakota State. What do you think about those games?
I think every game in our league is a tough matchup. You're going to get the best of everyone every night. We've already played Fort Wayne, so we're familiar with them. But at the same time, South Dakota State, I think everyone in the conference is familiar with them. Bunch of great players, well coached, and just a tough environment to play in at Frost. And I think it'll be tough. But I think a huge thing while playing there is just controlling the crowd. I think they let their crowd really pushes them and motivates them. They hit a couple big shots and that place just erupts. So if we can kind of control that and prevent some of the big runs there, it'll be tough. But yeah, looking forward to that opportunity as well.
All right, it's Emily Clemens of Western Illinois' women's basketball team. You can follow Emily on Twitter at mclem2, and then you can follow Western Illinois at WIUWBB. That's the Twitter account for the Western Illinois women's basketball team. Hey, thanks for the time today, and enjoy the trip out to Covey's in Brookings.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Emily. Up next, Niecee Nelson here on the Summit League podcast, the head coach of the Fort Wayne Mastodons. That's ahead plus more. This is the Summit League podcast.
The madness returns to Sioux Falls with the 2018 Summit League Basketball Championships. See one of the nation's top college basketball tournaments March 3rd through the 6th at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. Tickets are on sale now at any Ticketmaster outlet. All session tickets starting at less than $10 per game. Support your team and find out who will punch their ticket to the big dance. Go to thesummitleague.org/tickets and claim your seats today. Brought to you by the generosity of our sponsors and the Sioux Falls Sports Authority.
The march to the summit is on. Follow exciting Summit League men's and women's basketball action as teams race towards the championship and a trip to the big dance. Go to thesummitleague.org or follow on Twitter at Summit Hoops to stay up to date all season long. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right, we just heard from Emily Clemens of Western Illinois just a couple of moments ago here on the Summit League podcast, our first episode all time. Good to have you with us. We're now joined on the phone line by Niecee Nelson, the head coach of the Fort Wayne Mastodons women's basketball program. Niecee, welcome to the program. How are you today?
Thank you. Very good.
We were just talking a little bit off the air a little while ago before the show, and boy, it's cold down there. You've spent most of your time out in San Diego the last several years, and now recently taking over at Fort Wayne. How's the cold treating you?
It's great. The diversity in the weather is really a nice change. When you're coming from 80 degrees all year round, I was talking to you about being able to lay out and have beach days in December and January.
Sounds nice.
We're here now in January, and it is a full-on snow day today.
Yeah, I'm up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and it's It's been like this for about 2 months now.
Oh, my goodness.
Niecee,
this is our first big major snow, so I think my kids will be loving this.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple days to go out there and play. Niecee, let's lead off with last week as the Mastodons played 3 games, dropped results to Denver and South Dakota, but you beat Omaha 76-65. 5 Mastodons in double figures, so balanced scoring really helped the team earn its first conference win this season. How do you feel about the result in that game and the season so far?
You know, in that game, everyone showed up to play on the same day, and that's been the struggle with this young group. We're, the 4th youngest team in the country. At times we've had to start 4 freshmen and a sophomore based on injuries and different sickness and things like that, battling flu. And on that day, everyone showed up to play. So we do have kids that can put the ball in the basket, and when they choose to communicate, our defense works a lot better. So I think we were just, we were hungry for a win, and everything was clicking.
You've only got 1 senior on the team in McCarver. How do you see this group developing in the next few years with 5 true freshmen?
Well, the great thing about it is they're learning baptism by fire. They have to play the minutes. The problem with that is they don't have anyone in front of them showing them the ropes. But the good thing about that is they play with they play with the full fire of, let me just go out there and show you what I got. So for this year, they're getting a lot of playing experience, and next year going in as sophomores, they will be, they'll have the minutes as a junior or a senior. So they didn't have to take their turn sitting behind juniors and seniors.
De Jure Young leads you in scoring, but there isn't a clear-cut number 2 right now for the Mastodons. You do have a few players who kind of consistently get their baskets and could all develop, like we were talking about, as a group into that talented offensive group. Do you like having balance for your secondary scorers, or would you rather see 1 or 2 options step forward in that area?
I would love to see our post player take a bigger role. Right now we are trying to continually get her into game shape and then teach her the footwork of stepping up. Jalencia Williams, our 6'2" post player, she is very, very strong with nice back-to-the-basket moves, but still as a young freshman, she's still trying to figure out how to get that positioning against some of the big bodies in this conference. So she is someone that maybe as the season develops could still step into the spotlight and grab some more points. De Jure Young, averaging 11.5 points as our junior, that is definitely somebody that can step up her scoring too. In the preseason last year, she was averaging about 17. This year with balanced scoring, I think she's taken a little bit of a back seat and, just taking what the offense allows her to get. So as far as those 2 players, I would love to see their scoring, increase a little bit. Anna Lappen-Cooper, our point guard, she kind of picks and chooses areas where she can step up as well. Started out the game with 10 points in that first quarter yesterday and kind of disappeared a little bit. But for her, any given day, she could show up and actually increase her scoring as well. Kirsten Rupp is a freshman, our freshman shooter, and she's kind of hit and miss trying to figure out, how to get her shots and the physicality of this conference. She's playing against 6-foot guards that, have very mature bodies. And as a freshman coming in and having that average over, 20 minutes a game, trying to figure out how to get her shots, I think she's doing a really good job. But she has also been a little bit streaky for us in the shooting category.
You mentioned Lappen-Cooper a minute ago, a sophomore from Germany. It's Niecee Nelson of the 4-Way Mastodons, the head coach of the women's basketball team. You have gone international with the recruits since taking over the program. Sophia Rajala and Emma Tuominen are both freshmen from Finland. Again, Lappen-Cooper, the sophomore from Germany. How do you go about finding that international talent?
We have a coach on staff, Ty Shaw. He played overseas for over 10 years as a professional, and he has different coaching friends that span Australia and Canada, Germany, obviously, and different places. So his reach is very wide. For us, taking over the program, the first 2 recruiting classes were really picked over, and so we had to figure out a way to get players in here at a pretty high caliber pretty quickly. So we had to turn to overseas, and we got very, very lucky with Anna, coming in with the international experience.
Rajala is a member of the Finland national team and had a good background with the U16s and U18s. Lappen Cooper captained the German U16 team that was very successful too. How do they compare to other incoming freshmen considering the international experience?
For Anna as well, she just went and they won the under-20 European Championships this last summer as well. So for her leadership development in her freshman year, she was able to take that back in the summer and really as that point guard lead that team. For her, it was the maturity and the strength that she came in with. Sophia, on the other hand, she battled a knee injury. She had knee surgery in September. So we're trying to get her back in shape, in basketball shape. And then also with the basketball IQ part of it coming over to play in this conference, I think she's struggling a little bit trying to figure out, one, where her role on this team is right now, and two, figuring out for her size where she fits in at the 5 or the 4 position.
Niecee, you were an assistant for Cindy Fisher's staff at San Diego for years before coming back here to Fort Wayne. What was it like working for Cindy?
Oh, she is the best mentor in the game. She came in with tons and tons of experience, and being able to take over that program at San Diego that had the same challenges at first as we do here in building the program. You really have a blueprint coming into this. She really took the time to show me, how to build a championship culture, how to have patience, and really trust the process. So, working for her for all those years, I was there for 11 years, and just building a program from the ground up that was in last place, within 4 years getting to the NCAA tournament and having many, many years of postseason success. She was just amazing to work for.
You handled a lot of offensive responsibility while you were with that program, too, and had a lot to do with the development of their guards. Is that the foundation of what you want to do at Fort Wayne, too?
Yes, absolutely. We want to get to the point where we can play fast. I love switching up defenses, and for that you have to have, guards that not only can score the basketball but can defend. And so for us out here, that stress is making sure that our players are both fundamental on the defensive end and the offensive end. And that was a fun part of being an assistant, is being able to take time to develop those guards, not only on the court but off the court as people too.
Recently, the Mastodons held the 11th annual Pink Out when they played Denver. You honored breast cancer survivors at halftime. How important is that event to you personally and then to the program, too?
Oh, it's very important. In that first year, I could not believe the way that the programming was put together. It's probably in the mid-major one of the premier events in the country, I would say, for some of the smaller schools. There's a beautiful luncheon that happens right before the game where we pair up with the Vera Bradley Foundation for Breast Cancer. They bring in all the survivors and their families to come eat and share their stories. I get to address that group and just tell them how important the game is, not only for the awareness and to celebrate, but also for everyone to feel that support. This last year, as we were going into that first year, my grandmother was battling cancer, and whether it's breast cancer or any type of cancer, the biggest part is feeling that support from everybody, and
Absolutely.
That's what they had provided. And so this event just is a big reminder of how amazing it is when you can come together for a cause like this.
Niecee Nelson, the head coach of the Fort Wayne Mastodons women's basketball team. Niecee, you were an assistant at Fort Wayne before, from 2004 to 2005. How has Fort Wayne's program changed since you were here before, and what is still the same?
Well, when I was here, we were transitioning from Division II to Division I, so we weren't even in a conference yet. And so that is a big thing in itself. When I came back for my interview and walked through the doors of the Gate Center and the addition of the track facility and the new offices, I couldn't believe the commitment from the administration to grow the program. So in that aspect, really that community commitment and support has been fun to see.
What brought you back to the Mastodons program?
The opportunity to run a Division I program. This is a great opportunity to build a program from the ground up, and I like I said, I feel like my training at San Diego, taking over a program in that same aspect, putting the focus on the academics, getting back into the community, and, really focusing on building a basketball program. It was all an attractive piece of wanting to come out here and do it.
All right, Niecee Nelson, the head coach of the Fort Wayne Mastodons women's basketball team. Niecee, you travel to Western Illinois and then play North Dakota State coming up this weekend. What do you think about those games?
Yeah, we get a second crack at Western Illinois pretty quickly here. We opened up conference with them on the 30th, and for us to see them again so quickly, me and JD couldn't believe that it was that fast of a turnaround. But for that game, there were a lot of things in that game I felt like we can make adjustments for in this second opportunity. So we're excited about that matchup. And then North Dakota State, we are seeing them for the very first time. So our confidence is really high going into this road trip. And for us, we're on the road for the next 5 weeks. So we've taken on the mentality of road warriors. So looking forward to it.
You can follow the Mastodons on Twitter at Fort Wayne WBB, also on Twitter at Go Mastodons for the program. Niecee Nelson, the head coach of the women's basketball team, thanks for stopping by here on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, we will take a break, and when we come back, up next, it's Matt Mooney of the South Dakota Coyotes right here on the Summit League podcast.
In its fourth decade, the Summit League continues its ascent through excellence in the classroom and success in the field of play. In cities big and small, at public and private universities, students across league institutions reach for the summit. From academic All-Americans to NCAA champions and nationally ranked teams, Summit League student-athletes achieve the pinnacle of success. The Summit League, where tomorrow's leaders reach the summit today.
The Summit League Basketball Championships celebrate their 10th season in Sioux Falls, March 3rd through the 6th. Be part of one of the nation's premier college basketball tournaments by ordering tickets today. Visit thesummitleague.org/tickets for more details and reserve your seat to witness the March to the Summit. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right, welcome back here on episode 1, all-time of the Summit League podcast. Joining me on the phone line now, it is South Dakota Coyotes star Matt Mooney. Matt, welcome to the program, buddy. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you for having me, Matt.
Absolutely, my friend. How was your winter break? Did you go home or do anything else cool for the holidays?
Besides playing basketball, went home for a couple of days. Just saw my family, hung out with them. It was always good to see them. But then we were back here at school, just hanging out as a team. We did a little Secret Santa as a team. That was fun.
Cool.
Yeah, didn't do nothing crazy.
You've been around a little bit around the game of basketball. You're a huge basketball junkie from what I hear, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But I hear you've got a reputation on your team as being the celebrity of the group. Where does that come from? There's a story here.
No, I mean, the guys kind of hype me up.
Sure.
And there's some fake accounts on Instagram and Twitter and stuff.
So that's what it is. All right.
I don't know.
So do you pay much attention to those fake Instagrams, or is that not really your thing? And let everybody have their fun.
I let them have their fun, but it gets annoying sometimes when people ask me about my Instagram and why did you post that? I'm just telling them it's not me. That's not me. I didn't post anything. I don't know what you're talking about,
So where did these come from? How long have these been going on? Has this followed you for a while, or these legions of fake Matt Mooneys, or is this something pretty new?
No, it's pretty new. It started last year. And actually, Tyler Flack, turns out he made one of the accounts. And he's a funny guy. He's a goofy guy. But he made one of the accounts, and he just didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew who it was.
Really?
And then finally, before he left, he told me, "Hey, that's me. I made that account." So,
what's some of the craziest stuff people have come up to you and asked you about because of these accounts?
People just think I'm really weird, because these posts are just really weird, just funny pictures and goofy captions, and they just think I'm a really weird guy, and I'm just, I'm over here. I don't even have an Instagram.
Really?
I try to stay off that. Yeah, I try to stay off Insta. Just limit my distractions, and I don't know. I like Twitter though. Twitter's where it's at.
Yeah. What kind of stuff do you usually do with your Twitter?
Well, in season, I try to just kind of focus on the season, tweet about, upcoming games or after games, maybe tweet out some scripture verses here and there, or, if something funny comes to mind, I'll tweet something out funny. But I try to stay off tweeting during the season for the most part. I
Go ahead.
I follow a bunch of basketball. Like my timeline's all basketball stuff because I'm a hoops junkie.
Yeah, this season, the South Dakota Coyotes are the big dogs, so to speak, too. You're the defending regular season champions. Not a highly touted team last year, picked to finish just 7th in the league. Did you guys feel that it was a matter of just getting everything to fall in place to reach your potential, or were you guys sitting there going, man, we're the best kept secret in this league?
We knew we were good because we had 3 transfers sit out. We had some young guys coming in who were good, and then Flack. We knew Flack was real good. And we knew they were sleeping on us, but we didn't expect anything else. South Dakota hadn't really done too well in the past, and but we knew we were really good, and we knew it was just a matter of time before we really got it all together and figured out how to play together. And when we did, we got it rolling.
Now, despite your newfound Instagram celebrity, you weren't recruited all that much out of high school and went to Air Force first. Next time around, though, you drew a lot more buzz after announcing your transfer. How was it different the second time around in the recruiting pool?
Yeah, like you said, the second time around, I just had a lot more interest. I didn't know what I was going to get when I decided to leave Air Force. Probably picked up 15 or 20 just mid-major schools, mid-major offers. South Dakota was one of the first ones to call. But out of high school, I really had nothing. I had Air Force, UMass Lowell, and some other schools. North Dakota State was actually interested in me a little bit. UC Davis, Cal Poly, but nobody really offered, and a bunch of Division IIs. So I ended up going to Air Force, and I just ended up not really liking it there. I wasn't happy there, so I decided to leave. And when I did, I picked up probably 15 to 20, and it was a lot different for me. After having really nothing out of high school. But, yeah, I love it here at South Dakota. I don't know if I really answered your question, Matt. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Why did you wind up picking South Dakota in the end?
The coaching staff. The new facilities definitely played a role because the new facilities are beautiful. You can get in the gym anytime, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable to get in the gym, work out, and work on your game. But for sure, the coaching staff. Love Coach Smith, love Coach Hansen, who recruited me, and the other 2 coaches, Coach G and Coach Peterson. A lot of times in college basketball, there's a lot of coaches who aren't really genuine and don't really care about their guys because, to be honest, it is a business. But I really felt like these guys really cared about their players, and they do. And that's the main reason I chose here.
One of the cool things about looking at your schedule is that you've gotten the chance to go on the road and play some big teams. You've played at Duke and UCLA this season. What's it like getting to play at those historical venues?
Yeah, I mean, if you had to pick 1 or 2 places to play at in the country, those would probably be right up there. Duke, UCLA, Kansas. But it was cool. It was definitely cool. But people who asked me this, Matt, I actually told them, it was overrated because it's never fun to go somewhere and lose. And our mindset was to go in there and get a win. Against Duke, we played them. We played them tough, but I mean, it was a blowout in the first half, and we fought back. But and UCLA was a game we really should have won. There's only one team that we played this year that, I'll be honest, I really thought was better than us, and that was Duke. TCU, we came up short. UCLA, we came up short. But I just don't think we played to our capability. But definitely really fun to play in those environments and those atmospheres.
It's South Dakota star, not Instagram star, apparently, Matt Mooney here on the Summit League podcast. And you guys play Wednesday night against Oral Roberts. That's a long team that's got some really good size to it at forward and some good athletes who can shoot the ball as guards. How tough is it to game plan for a team that's got some of those raw physical attributes to it?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a different game than we're used to. Definitely a different team than last year. We've been doing a lot of rebounding drills in practice, trying to prep for these guys. They're big. They crash the boards hard. Nezaquazi, that guy's good.
Yeah.
Their four-man's good. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, For me, I was like playing against zones, like stand there and shoot the ball.
Yeah.
But this zone, they stretch it out, and it's a little bit of a different look. But definitely excited to play tomorrow against a good team.
Have these games changed for you guys at all 1 year to the next now that you're the defending champions in the regular season?
No, I don't think so. Nothing changes. We still want to win the league. That's the goal both years, to win the league. And to do that, you got to win every game. We dropped one at home at North Dakota State. The only team that's beat us here, and that one really hurts. But now we know we can't let another one slide. We got to be ready to go every night.
After this game against Oral Roberts, you've got Omaha and South Dakota State. How big are these Dakota rivalries to you guys, and how would you describe them to fans from around the Summit League, how big these games are?
These games are nuts. I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
It's crazy. People out here, it's kind of like, I'm not going to say it's all they care about, but it's definitely everybody is watching those games, And last year, after we beat them at home, that's kind of all people wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about us being, Summit League champs after we won the league. It was all about, South Dakota versus South Dakota State. And definitely now that they're at the top of the league and we're at the top of the league, it's going to be amplified a little bit. But it's absolutely crazy. People out here, it's South Dakota State. There's no pro teams. Those are the two Division I colleges. And South Dakota State's been good for a long time, and obviously they had Nate Wolters go through there.
Yep.
So they've kind of ran the state for a little bit, but we, we're coming in, and we want people to know that this is our state, and we want it to be our state. So it's a big game. It is it's crazy.
Historically, they've always packed the house for the Summit League tournament, too. But in the last few years, since South Dakota moved into the Summit League, they no longer have an exclusive monopoly on that, so to speak. You guys are just an hour away from Sioux Falls. What's that like, being able to play in that environment so close to campus for a chance to go to the big dance?
Yeah, it's definitely helps us. We had a lot of students at those games, and it's definitely kind of like a home crowd, unless we're playing South Dakota State. Like our first game against Western was basically a home crowd, and it was packed. We really appreciate the people coming out during the Summer League tournament, because that really helps us. And it's a great atmosphere up there. It's a great environment. I think it's like top 10 in the country in attendance for conference tournaments, so it's a really nice venue up there.
You mentioned earlier the new facility that you guys play in. You like it a lot. Tell me a little bit more about why you like it there.
I like it a lot. It's just really nice. The seats, it gets really loud in there. It's not too big. It's not too small. I think it's the perfect size. I do wish we could get more fans, more students out to the games. I love our fans to death, but we haven't really been able to fill that place up yet this year. It'll be filled up for South Dakota State, but it'd be nice to get filled up just for regular games. But I love playing in there. It's just we've done pretty well in there. And like I said, it gets really loud, and it's just a nice gym. It's a really nice arena. They did it right when they built this place.
Yeah, and there's a few new facilities in the area. There's the Sanford Coyote Sports Center, there's the Sanford Pentagon, and then there's the Denny Sanford Premier Center in Sioux Falls. I mean, there's a lot of good new stadiums coming up in that area right now. It's got to be fun to play in all those.
Yeah, it is, for sure. We played in the Pentagon earlier this year and played in the Premier Center for the tournament, and it seems like Sanford just runs everything around here.
Yeah.
The names on everything. But, yeah, definitely a lot of fun to play in all three of those places.
Matt, you've got a couple of siblings that have gone through college athletics as well. Joe's at UC Davis playing basketball, and your brother Daniel played baseball at Miami. How have you guys helped each other in your athletic careers?
Yeah, we were always really competitive growing up, but my older brother, he's pretty much my role model, my inspiration. Even though he didn't play college basketball, just growing up, he worked his tail off to get as good as he could in basketball and baseball. And he was always pushing me every day. So that's the way he got me better and pushed me to be better. And he still calls me after games, watches the games, talks to me. And then obviously me and my little brother both playing college ball. coaches here actually tried to get him on the schedule, but I'm gonna take a little shot at UC Davis. They were a little scared to play us. They wouldn't want to play us.
Was that because they knew how all the pickup games in the driveway had gone, or is there something else there?
Oh, I don't know if they knew, but I know my little brother has never beat me in a game of one-on-one.
And you remind him of that all the time, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do remind him. Hopefully he listens to this and hears that. But, no, we definitely got after it growing up. Every time we go home, we work out together. We keep in touch all the time. And my little brother, he's going to be a really good player. So he's starting to get more minutes for UC Davis and starting to contribute. They're a good team. But we just push each other growing up. If I ever, ate something like a cupcake or like a donut, my older brother would just tell me, that's just going to slow you down. It's not going to make you faster. It's not going to make you stronger. Just little things like that. But, yeah.
You're a big NBA guy, super competitive too, and I heard through Ryan, the SID, that you've created a game somewhere along the way, 20 questions about NBA players. And the guy that they finally got you on apparently was Caron Butler. Now, how deep down the rabbit hole does this game go that we're playing Caron Butler here? Where did this come from, and what kind of questions are you asking?
No, actually, this game started, I was driving out to South Dakota this summer with my brother, my younger brother. We were just bored because it's a long drive. So we started doing 20 questions NBA players. And so then I started doing with my teammates because, we got a lot of guys who love basketball, obviously. Yeah. And I don't know. I think I have a pretty good knowledge of the game, and I follow the game a lot. So they tried to get me with, Gilbert Arenas and who's the point guard? Andre Miller. But you could pick anybody. It just has to be a current or a former NBA player. And then the other guy's got 20 questions, 20 yes or no questions, trying to figure out who you're talking about. So it gets kind of hard, especially when the guy didn't play for a long time in the league or never was an all-star or won a championship or something like that. It's just a fun game to pass some time on, road trips and stuff.
Who's the most obscure player that anybody's played on you?
Obscure. Logan picked, I can't remember the guy's name. Guy played at Kentucky and then played 1 year in the league and ended up getting sick and couldn't play anymore.
So we're pretty deep down the rabbit hole here. This is some Matrix stuff.
Yeah, I was like Lopo. That's what I call him, Lopo. Lopo, you got to pick somebody that at least I know who his name is. If I don't know his name, I got no chance. It was DeJuan Wagner. That's what it was.
Okay. Wow. And, so we're going pretty deep here.
Yeah, he was on a 30 for 30, that one with Calipari. So Lopo thought I would know who he was, but I didn't remember the guy.
All right, Matt Mooney, South Dakota Coyotes. Let's do a little NBA rapid fire here. Who's your favorite team right now, and then your favorite team historically?
My favorite team is the Warriors, just because I love Curry, love watching him play. I like Clay too, but historically it's the Bulls. I would watch the Bulls every day when Rose was playing, and when he was in his MVP year, I watched him every day.
What NBA lineup would you build to play with, including yourself in that starting five?
Including myself, all right. I put me at probably have to be a point in the league, so I'd put me at the point. I have to take Curry. I put him in there. Be a little bit small. KD at the 3, LeBron at the 4, Anthony Davis at the 5.
That's a monster lineup.
Oh, that's a good lineup.
Yeah. I mean, especially with KD on the wing there. I mean, yeah, you might be a little small at guard, but you get pretty big in a hurry.
Yeah.
Who do you think wins it all this year?
I think the Warriors. I don't see them losing. I think the three-headed monster of KD, Durant, or KD, Clay, and Steph is just unstoppable. But they're gonna have it. They're gonna have their work cut out for them. Houston's good, and obviously the Cavs will probably figure it out.
Yeah, how about Boston too? I mean, if you plug Hayward back into that lineup, I mean that's a different looking team, and they're still pretty good.
Yeah, they are good. I'm excited to see them hopefully play the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals because I am not a big LeBron fan, but I respect him. The guy's great. But I don't think he's had much competition in the East. He really hasn't. So it's going to be interesting to see him get some competition with the Celtics, because even the conference finals every year, they're always beating everybody, 4-1, 4-0. So that'll be interesting.
What team have you expected more of this season?
More of? The Cavs, probably. But
Sure.
they're always slow in the regular season. They always get a bunch of new guys. Isaiah Thomas has been out. Wade's new. So I expect them to be better, but they always kind of do this.
Which NBA player do you think your game best compares to?
Best compares to? I've had a guy I work out with back home who works for Pure Sweat. It's a training company. He sends me a lot of clips of Bradley Beal. He thinks my game's kind of like Bradley Beal. So I don't know. It's hard to do. I mean, to compare yourself to an NBA player is pretty tough to do because those guys are so great. But I would probably say a Bradley Beal kind of guy, a two-guard in the league since I'm a two-guard here in college.
Matt Mooney, South Dakota Coyotes. Do you have any plans in mind for after basketball already, whenever that is? Do you plan on playing pro?
Yeah, I would love to play pro. I definitely am going to play as long as I can. I love the game, and I want to be great. So my plans after college are to play professionally.
All right, that's Matt Mooney, the South Dakota Coyotes star. You can follow the Coyotes at SD Coyotes MBB. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Moonswag13. Don't follow him on Instagram because he's not there.
Yes, don't follow me on Instagram. It's not me.
Unless you want the fake Matt Mooney. Well, one of the fake Matt Mooneys anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Matt, thanks for the time, buddy. Good to have you on today.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, we will take a break, and when we come back, it is Omaha Mavericks women's basketball coach Brittany Lange ahead here on the Summit League podcast.
The madness returns to Sioux Falls with the 2018 Summit League Basketball Championships. See one of the nation's top college basketball tournaments March 3rd through the 6th at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. Tickets are on sale now at any Ticketmaster outlet. All session tickets starting at less than $10 per game. Support your team and find out who will punch their ticket to the big dance. Go to thesummitleague.org/tickets and claim your seats today. Brought to you by the generosity of our sponsors and the Sioux Falls Sports Authority.
The Summit League Basketball Championships celebrate their 10th season in Sioux Falls, March 3rd through the 6th. Be part of one of the nation's premier college basketball tournaments by ordering tickets today. Visit thesummitleague.org/tickets for more details and reserve your seat to witness the March to the Summit. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
Episode 1 rolls on. That was Matt Mooney of the South Dakota Coyotes here just a moment ago on the first episode of the Summit League podcast. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll be dropping one of these every other Wednesday, so check back on Wednesday, January 31st for episode 2 of the Summit League podcast. Brittany Lange, the head coach of the Omaha Mavericks women's basketball team, joins me on the line now. Brittany, welcome to the show. Good to have you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, the Mavericks are 8-8 this season, and they went 8-4 in non-conference play. Brittany, that's the best non-conference record in the Division I era for Omaha since the 2011 and 12 season. How do you assess your team to this point this year?
Yeah, it's really been an interesting year and a lot of surprises, both good and a few kind of not so good in the last couple of weeks. But we have an extremely young squad. We really only returned 3 players that have played for us previously in our uniform at Omaha. So we have a lot of new kids trying to get acclimated to our style and to Division I basketball. And I think we've played with a lot of confidence in non-conference period and won some close games early and some signature wins against Northern Iowa and Montana State. And since we've come back from Christmas break, we've kind of been on a little bit of a struggle here the last couple of weeks just to start conference play, but really it's kind of to be expected just with such the newness of our team and our players, and we've been banged up with a few injuries and just kind of lost one of our best players in Jay Bridgman for the rest of the year. So just like any team and coach across the country, we're trying to learn how to adjust and stay fresh and adaptable and see how we can compete the rest of the conference period.
One of those new faces for your program is Jess Walter. She's your leading scorer, the transfer out of Indiana. How else has she impacted the team since joining Omaha?
Well, Jess is somebody we were very excited and highly anticipated her arrival as well as her impact on the team. And, as all transfers, I think it takes them a little bit of time, just like freshmen, to get adjusted to the new style of play and to really work out some of the kinks of sitting out for the full year. So we've really seen Jess, have just a little bit hesitancy to start the year, but she's really coming into her own, I think, recently, and she knows where we need her as far as a leader and also offensively. So I do think it takes some time, and I think the best basketball is still ahead of her for the rest of the conference period.
This year's team is pretty guard-heavy for the Mavericks, and your three leading scorers are Walter, Amber Vidal, and Ellie Brecht. They all kind of get it done a little bit differently, too. Brecht is good from three. Vidal can set up other players and score herself, and they're all just juniors and no seniors on this team. What's the growth of that group been like over the last couple of years for you?
Well, it's been great to see them start season. Just kind of evolved players. You've seen Ellie Brecht try to do a lot more for our team, and she's as good of a shooter as there is. It's just really a matter of finding her openings with each game. And Amber Vidal has really expanded her game in the mid-range game as well as her outside shooting, and she has a lot of experience comparatively to the rest of the players on our team. So I think she's used to having the ball in her hands. And then lastly, Jess is somebody that we kind of play 1 through 4 at different times. So all very different. Still working to kind of complement each other in the right pieces in the right time, but I really have seen some good things from all three of them. Now it's just a matter of us being able to round out the rebounds and make up for playing more of a four-guard front rather than two traditional posts like most teams play.
I think what's interesting about your team over the last couple of years is that as the record has improved, the conference record has gone up every season since you took over too. But a couple of years ago, second in the league in blocks per game as a team, and then a really strong shooting team. Last year, you've had some really good defensive teams in there. What leads to all these changes year by year with the program?
Well, I think every program they have a change in coaching staff has a transition period. And so we've actually had two kind of transition periods, one with the new coaching staff, and secondly, the most important or impactful one, I think, is the jump from Division II to Division I that we made. So we've had a lot of kind of change in roster from year to year, just given the big jump that we had to make in the caliber of players and the talent. So you've seen some really healthy kind of turnover, but it really does kind of change the dynamic of your team these first 4 years or early in this transition. We've really been intentional about trying to recruit a team that is a little bit longer and more of a three-point shooting team this year. Since we are young and a little banged up, we don't quite have the three-point shooting that we did last year or the experienced defenders. So we've got to kind of shift some things around and figure out how this team is really going to settle. But it's a style that we want to play that's very versatile and plays to our team's strengths each year, and that's why you kind of see a fluctuation in statistical areas.
Brittany Lange, the head coach of the Omaha Mavericks women's basketball team here on the Summit League podcast. What was the biggest challenge in the transition from Division II to Division I?
Well, I think the first and foremost obvious one is you're recruiting to a situation where you're not going to be able to play in postseason for 4 years. And you have a lot of people that play the sport, and what they look forward to is a postseason play, and it's a highlighted deal. And to really come into a program knowing that it's going to be really hard work and you're probably not going to get the reward at the end of the year of that tournament-like experience can sometimes deter people, to wanting to make that transition for you. So I think that's one. And then secondly, you're trying to recruit classes that are better and better year after year. So you're trying to create a really healthy balance and chemistry on your team where your freshmen and your sophomores coming in might be a little bit more talented and highly recruited than maybe some of the upperclassmen. And you just got to do a really good job of balancing that flow and having the culture set and the leadership set in upperclassmen that are okay with maybe taking less playing time as they get older through the program.
How do you feel about the growth of the program in your tenure?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's something that we really try to pitch here about improvement. Like Omaha is a place where you come to improve. And we've pitched everything from academics to player development to record to national rankings. And we have improved up to this point every single year in all of those categories. At some point, it's just not going to keep trending upward every single year. But we've been really proud of that. Everything from, having academic All-Americans to ranking in the top 25 in the country in assists and three-point shooting. But this year, we are really young. We lost 7 or 8 kids last year that had good experience. And so you're going to have a little bit of a dip and struggle just to get that experience back, but it will climb again. And I'm really proud of just, you look at this team won 8 games in Division II just a handful of years ago and finished with a winning record in Division I last year and 1 possession away from the championship game. So you have to be proud of that progression in competition.
Brittany, you talked about wanting to get longer and being able to shoot the three-pointer. Is that ideally the type of team that you want to construct in recruiting over the next few years too?
I mean, I definitely think it is as far as the stylistic points. Really getting kids that are hard-nosed, high energy, really, really tough. I think that's getting exposed here in the first few games of conference where we're playing some really physically tough teams that have that tournament experience. And we really need to continue to recruit local Midwest kids. I think that's really important for us to build that kind of notoriety around the conference and around our city. We want kids that are long with kind of the zone that we play, 5 kids that can all step out and spread the floor and shoot it. I mean, that's the ideal thing that we're working towards. But, again, the kid that fits your style and the right culture and the right character, I mean, we'll take them. And if they're not a three-point shooter, that's fine. I know they can impact our team in many ways.
Omaha Mavericks women's basketball coach Brittany Lange here on the Summit League podcast. Brittany, you got your coaching start as a student coach at Iowa State where you played. How did you get into that student coaching position, and what was that like early on in your coaching career?
Well, like a lot of players, I unfortunately experienced a lot of injuries to start my college career, and I had to make a decision to call it quits physically, but I was really, really fortunate. I can't say enough about the Iowa State program and Coach Fenley, and things happen for a reason. And so my playing days were cut short early, and as a result, Coach Fenley and the staff asked me to stay around as a student coach. And it was probably the most beneficial experience that I had, and good things come out of bad things at times. And I was able to really see the other side of the program through the coaching lens while also being a player previously. And I think it really catapulted my career and gave me a lot of opportunities, and doors opened at the right time for me early, and came to Omaha excited about building a program. And I think my experiences at Iowa State led me to be prepared at a really young age. Are
you still close to some of your old coaches? What influence do they have on you today?
Yeah, absolutely I am. And again, that culture piece is what we're really trying to build here at Omaha. And something that we pitch here is you've got a blank slate to really build out history. And a lot of my influences come from my playing days at Iowa State and coaching days there. I still talk to my assistant coach, Jody Steyer, and Coach Fenley, I'd say 2 or 3 times a month. And I think that's really, really important. You're talking about somebody that's been out of the program for almost 10 years now, and they really mean family over there when they preach it, and that's something we're trying to carry on here, and I think it's highly influential for people wanting to get into coaching.
Was it weird for you early on coaching some of your former teammates, going from player to coach
Yes.
quickly like that?
It really is, and my whole coaching career thus far has been a pretty comparable age that I've had to coach with. I was younger than a couple of classes at Iowa State, and you really just have to take the approach of relating to them and investing in them, and also drawing the line in a healthy way. Same thing when I became a coach at age 26. I'm only a couple of years older than some of the players that we inherited, and it's just very important that I stay authentic to myself. I don't try to be something that I'm not, and that the players know that I'm there as their coach, but also as a mentor and somebody that has just been through it. And I think it's really paid dividends for us as far as the relatable piece in recruiting and in the coaching style.
Brittany Lange, the head coach at the Omaha Mavericks for the women's basketball program. Again, like you said, you were named head coach of the program at age 26 4 years ago. That's an age where some of us, we're still trying to figure out which dollar menu we can actually afford. You get the keys to a Division I basketball program. How big a personal accomplishment is that to you looking back?
I don't really know if it's a personal accomplishment. I mean, I am not naive to the point that I was really gifted an opportunity that most people work their entire lives to have. And so I don't take that for granted one bit. But I will say it's an immense responsibility. You're responsible for your coaching staff, for your support staff, for 15 young young women, and then also recruiting young high school students into your program. And I was able to kind of navigate through that because I had really good mentors and experiences in my past. But just like anybody, you make mistakes daily and you have to learn through them. And I think the more I've been in coaching and the older you get, you find out the less you actually knew. But we've really tried to grow from those mistakes and just be open to all the communication experiences. But it has greatly challenged me as a person and as a leader, and it's required me to really invest in a lot of other resources and people that have been in the business for a long time.
What do you remember about your first game as head coach?
Well, I think we were just trying to make sure we were going to find the gym all right, and everything was going to go okay. But, just everything was moving really quickly. I was given the job the first day of practice, and so it wasn't necessarily a situation where you have the off season to prepare for the style of play you were going to play in, your rotations, and really get your feet wet. We just really kind of had to put our head down and go and adjust as we went. And I believe we played at Lafayette, and so we were probably the longest road trip away. Yeah. And it was definitely an athletic game, but I felt that we had a lot of enthusiasm and hope for the year, and I think we went into Christmas 7-5 with the first group of going into Division I. So it was kind of a whirlwind, long time ago, but I definitely think it was something that we all remember and bonded over.
But you did find the gym.
We did. We did find the gym, found the hotel, found the restaurants.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was as smooth as it could have been, but we functioned all right.
What's the most memorable game that you've coached?
I guess I would have to really highlight just the last 2 years in the conference tournament. You have a program that has been dying to play in postseason and really experience something for the first time. And we definitely did not take those opportunities for granted. And I think playing IUPUI as the 6th seed when they were the 3 seed, and then playing South Dakota last year as an underdog, we're both environments where we went in not favored, and we just really rose to the occasion and executed and elevated the program each time. So I think both those games really stand out. Obviously, they're great environments, but I definitely think our program grew a lot from it and got even hungrier to try to replicate that success in postseason.
The Mavs play Denver on Thursday. You play South Dakota on Saturday. What do you think about those games, scouting both of those teams?
Well, Denver is definitely a very different team than they've been the last couple of years. Coach Turgeon is a friend and a coach that I've known for a while, kind of in the area, and he has done a great job with them. He has kids playing hard. They do have a lot of talent. Had a great recruiting class come in that the previous staff did a nice job with, and you see the kids playing hard, fast-paced, really shooting the three. So it's definitely going to be a challenge on the boards and obviously getting out to all of their offensive weapons. And in South Dakota, to me, right now is really playing probably the best basketball of anyone in the league. I think they currently, and just the way that they're playing, are the team to beat. They kind of play 5 guards. They're all big and talented, and their motion is really tough to guard. So we're going to have our work cut out for us this week, but I do think our team has responded last couple of days in practice in the way that they need to, and we're hoping to be really competitive in both and see what we can come out with.
And it's not that long until conference tournament time either in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and that is probably the most wonderful time of the year for young programs, especially who are hungry to get in there like yours.
It really is. I mean, you look at the season and you kind of approach it as a coach, or at least we do, that there are 3 different seasons in one. You have your non-conference season, you have your conference season, and then it's conference tournament time. And so at that point, it's anybody's shot. Who can be the best team for 72 hours? And it's really a thrill, and our conference does a fantastic job. It's the most underrated conference tournament in the country. I believe we average more attendance than any other conference in the country, and that includes all Power 5. So it's a great environment. It's really fun. You kind of feel this special environment and situation for the girls, and we encourage a lot of people to go out and experience it.
All right, that's Brittany Lange, the head coach of the Omaha Mavericks women's basketball team. You can follow them on Twitter at OmahaWBB, and you can follow Brittany at Coach B. Lange. That's Lange. Brittany, thanks for the time. Appreciate it, and good luck this weekend.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, we will take a break, and when we come back, we will wrap the show, the first ever episode of the Summit League podcast.
In its fourth decade, the Summit League continues its ascent through excellence in the classroom and success in the field of play. In cities big and small, at public and private universities, students across league institutions reach for the Summit. From academic All-Americans to NCAA champions and nationally ranked teams, Summit League student-athletes achieve the pinnacle of success. The Summit League, where tomorrow's leaders reach the summit today.
Get the latest news on all 19 Summit League sports at thesummitleague.org. Watch championships, access the League's ESPN3 events, view up-to-date standing statistics, and more, all at the home for Summit League athletics. Follow the League's social media pages on Twitter at The Summit League and on Facebook and Instagram at /The Summit League. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right, that's it. Episode number 1. We're going to wrap things up pretty quickly here, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me on the Summit League podcast, our very first, our debut episode. I had to fight through a little bit of a sore voice. I've been filling in on a couple of different beats here in Michigan's Eastern Upper Peninsula, where the Summit League podcast HQ is located, and filling in for Bill Crawford on Lake Superior State Hockey in the WCHA. And Crawford, the longtime voice of the Lakers, blows his voice out a couple of weeks ago. Well, what happens? I blow my voice out filling in for him and then had to get ready for a podcast. So that was a little worrisome in the couple of days leading up to the show, but it was a good show. I was really happy with how it turned out, and all of the guests here on the show have been absolutely fantastic. Wanted to give a big thanks to everybody for coming on. Rodney Billups, Denver's men's basketball head coach. Emily Clemens, the Western Illinois star and reigning athlete of the month in the Summit League. Niecee Nelson, Fort Wayne's women's basketball coach. Matt Mooney, the star for the South Dakota Coyotes. And Brittany Lange, the Omaha Mavericks women's basketball head coach. Remember, as always, you can follow the Summit on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember, you can't follow Matt Mooney on Instagram. He's not on there, but there's a bunch of fake Matt Mooneys out there, apparently. But you can follow the Summit League. It's the real McCoy by following the Summit League on Instagram. And you can get involved with the podcast, too, using the hashtag HearTheSummit. You've also heard the voice of Scott Cook here on the show. He's the one who's cutting those little rejoin commercials as we come back from our breaks. He's my coworker up here at the Summit League Podcast HQ, also known as Sovereign Communications Sault Ste. Marie, and Mark St. Angelo, the voice of the open and close of the show. He's actually my boss. He's our operations director up here. Producers, Brian Campbell and Kaylee Ryan. Executive producers, Summit League Director of Communications, Greg Meddy, and Summit League Assistant Commissioner for Communications, Dave Brower. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks, episode 2, dropping on January the 31st for the Summit League podcast. So watch this space for episode 2. And until then, I'm Matt Pocket. See ya.
Join us every 2 weeks for a new episode of the Summit League podcast at thesummitleague.org. Follow the league all season long on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Summit League. And follow Matt on Twitter and Facebook at Corner Pocket 422.